Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Mary DeReadt. I'm a professor at the George Washington University, a clinical therapist, and the co-creator of the Care for Creatives program. Care for Creatives is a program created in tandem with George Washington University and the Creative Affairs Office in DC Gov. The intention behind the program is to promote mental health in the creative community and to provide both information about mental health and also pay what you can therapy through the Community Counseling Services Center on George Washington's campus. In today's episode of Care for Creatives, we will be discussing the programs and services of our clinic at George Washington University with Dr. Reyna Smith, who is the Assistant Director of the Community Counseling Services Center. Dr. Reyna, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so my name is Dr. Reyna Smith. I am a licensed professional clinical counselor, supervisor, adjunct professor. I'm currently licensed to provide therapy in Ohio. I'm actually very new to DC as of January. So working on my DC license, but my current role, I'm the Assistant Director of the Community Counseling Services Center at GW.
It's so wonderful, and we're so excited to have you. It's been lovely to have you in the clinic. And I really appreciate the fact that you were willing to come in today and talk about the services that we offer at the Community Counseling Services Center, which we generally refer to as the CCSC.
Right.
Because as you and I have talked about before, you know, sometimes it's hard to make that decision to come in and get counseling, or to know what to do first, or even if you need to come in and get counseling.
Right.
So I was wondering if maybe you could talk a little bit about, from your perspective, what are some things that kind of draw people into counseling, and maybe after that a little bit about what the value of coming to counseling is.
Yeah, I would say what draws people into counseling is just like kind of being unsure sometimes about what they're experiencing, needing some clarity, maybe a bit of work stress, work-life balance, anxiety, depression, just things that they can't really pinpoint, things that they may not be able to talk to friends with, talk to family about, things that they may be struggling with, you know, just on their own, and really needing that outlet, needing that kind of unbiased space to talk and to work through some things. So I think people find value in just talking things out and kind of getting that clarity, even if they can't, like I said, pinpoint what's wrong, what the problem is. Sometimes they think, okay, I don't need therapy, I don't need to come in, there's nothing too, you know, wrong or too problematic. It's like, okay, I don't need that, but to, I guess, be held, you know, I have somebody hold space for you to process, to kind of get to the point of like, okay, maybe that's what's going on. I think that's what the value is.
Yeah. No, I like what you were saying about the fact that like sometimes we think we don't need to, or, you know, one of the things that I've heard people say is that they have a lot of influencers, right? They have people online, they are following people who are giving really solid mental health, you know, feedback when they are, like every morning they'll read someone's inspirational information or something like that. And, you know, I wonder if you could talk to me a little bit about the difference between getting mental health information from our environment and actually coming in and talking to someone.
Yeah. And not to discredit, you know, content creators and influencers and things like that. I think mental health influencers provide a lot of good information, but it's for the masses. It's for a generalized population. But when you're signing up and connecting with an actual therapist, it's personal. They're learning about you, your background, your goals, your culture, and it's truly a journey with this one person. It's not a cookie cutter plan as they're putting out through memes and, you know, TikTok videos, again, which is great and which can be helpful for tips and things like that. But to have that personal relationship with somebody who is understanding of you and working with you side by side on this journey to get from point A to point B of feeling better, of healing. I think that personal relationship is what, you know, helps make that progress to those goals.
Yeah. We talk a lot in our field about emotion regulation, and emotion regulation is really the difference between feeling like we have some agency over our emotional health and kind of the roller coaster that is our emotional life. And so one of the differences can be we can have a sense of ourself, kind of like a self soothing aspect, and online influencers can kind of be that self-soothing. It's our self-regulation. But therapy is really a co-regulation, right? It's someone else is there and you're getting to look in their eyes and talk to them and get their perspective And so there is this added layer that allows it to impact us and maybe have a stronger impact than just that self-regulation piece.
Absolutely. And like I said, it's very personalized. It's very tailored to you and what you're experiencing. We'll see videos and memes and, you know, tips and tricks for, you know, online influencers and social media where they're saying do these things, but like it can be helpful on the surface, but as it applies to you as a person and whatever you're experiencing, you have to tailor that on your own. But with the help of a therapist that you're working with, they can help tailor that plan for you and with you. It's collaborative.
Yeah. Yeah, it's making me think of that, you know, sometimes you have something in your head and you're stuck, right? You're going around and around and around because it's all inside your own head. But seeing a therapist is like getting it out of your head and seeing it reflected in someone else.
Absolutely. And that's the benefit of just kind of like talking through things. Like I said, like sometimes we can't really identify what's going on. We feel things, we experience things, but as we're talking them out, a therapist, our job, and we have skills to actively listen. So we're listening very intently, and as you're talking, we're pulling out themes and making connections and, you know, saying, okay, this is what I'm hearing, and reflecting that back to you. And you're like, oh, like, absolutely.
Right. Right, like, huh. Yeah, I actually, like just hearing that back, you go, oh, wow, I said that, didn't I?
Yes.
Right? Yeah, there's a layer to it. And I think it's different, too, than talking to friends and family, because when you were talking about the fact that you have this person there to kind of give you an outside perspective, an informed and educated outside perspective, it's also not about that person, right? It's about you. And when you're with friends and family, you have all these like a history with them, you have doubts maybe about what they're saying, and when you get this outside perspective, it really offers you a chance to reevaluate and to think through, and they don't have an agenda except to help you.
Exactly. It's kind of like a blank slate. Coming in and introducing yourself and your story to somebody who is learning you for the first time versus somebody who has a relationship with you. So friends and family will often hear them being like a cheerleader of like, okay, cool, this is great, do that, or the opposite of that, okay, like don't do that. But there's no in between of like the processing and talking things through because they know you so well that they're comfortable in providing advice or saying do this thing or the other. Whereas, you know, in mental health and counseling, we're not giving you advice. We're helping you kind of come to a decision or a response or behavior, you know, through talking things out. Yeah,
absolutely. It's bringing up another point about the way that we do therapy in the CCSC and the options. And I think one of the things that we have there is the Care for Creatives approach, which is really a short 6-session approach. And then we also have, right, the longer term. You can come in and see someone for as long as you need to see them.
Right.
And I guess maybe I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the value of short term or what might draw someone to short term, and then why someone might be drawn more to longer term counseling in general.
Yeah, I think with short term, we're looking at a specific presenting concern or presenting problem. Like, oh, I'm experiencing this thing today. Let me take a couple sessions to work through it, get some skills, get some strategies to work through it. But in doing that, sometimes other things may come up. And you're like, oh, okay, I have something for this small thing that was an issue, but this also reminds me of something that happened to me last year or something that occurred in the past, and I want to process that as well. So there's benefits of getting short-term therapy, but that could also lead to something more long-term, and that's okay as well. But it's just a matter of what you want and what you want to experience.
Yeah, I think that distinction can trip people up sometimes. Like, I'm not sure if I want to just come in for 6 or if I want to do a longer term, but recognizing that there's benefits to both.
Yeah. And things come up. Like, things come up as you talk, and you think you might be coming into therapy for one thing, and you and your therapist begin to process, and something else kind of erupts and comes up. And you're like, okay, like let's focus on that as well, and that's when you're able to extend or do more long-term treatment. But again, it's based on what you come to the 2 sessions with.
Yeah. I think too, from my perspective, the 6-session starting point is a great opportunity if you've never been to therapy before, if you have no idea what to expect, if you're kind of not sure whether you're ready to do it or not, you can come in and have a set 6 sessions where you just talk to someone and you go through a specific set of interventions and see how you feel when you're done. And then you have the autonomy, the choice at the end. Do I want to keep going?
Right. And I think that's cool too, because you're getting an introduction. If you've never been in services before and you're wanting to just try them out, that's a good place to start. And it could be beneficial for you, or you could decide in the end, hey, I hated that, or I didn't want to work with this person, but for to just get started, to see what it's like, to see the feel of it, that could be a good place to start. Just learning about what it's like to be in counseling.
Yeah, it's bringing up for me another question, which is you were bringing up, maybe I don't get along with this person, maybe I don't. It's a really important part of counseling that sometimes you get assigned a counselor or you meet with a counselor and you don't really feel comfortable at first.
Yeah.
And this may be not the right person. And so maybe you could talk a little bit about what that process is and how maybe things that might come up for people when they meet with their counselor at first and they're not sure.
Yeah, I think there's often like hesitancy, like in the beginning, just starting in the first place. But what counselors we focus on like building that relationship. And I think if we're already, coming in with a wall up, being able to connect with someone who's able to hold space for us. But on the opposite side of that, if you're not comfortable, you know that about yourself. I think we are all decently self-aware to know, hey, I want to continue having these conversations with this person, or I know myself and I know how I want this to go, and I'm open and willing to trying something else out. But I think that's, you mentioned the word autonomy, the autonomy of saying, I know what could be good for me. And that's okay as well. It's like shopping for a car. Like you are allowed to test drive and see if something works out for you. And if not, you're allowed to kind of move around and say, okay, I needed something that's a better fit for me.
Yeah, I think there's a tendency, because it's a relationship, to feel like I don't want to upset my therapist.
I'm stuck with this person.
Right, like this is who I got assigned. If I don't want to do this, then I can't. I'm not going to come back.
And we make it really easy in the CCSC because we have counseling interns. So we have interns who have different interests, different theoretical orientations, just different ways of going about counseling. If a client comes in and decides, hey, I'm interested in working with somebody else, that's allowed. We just contact our intake coordinator, and she's able to kind of move people about, again, based on the needs, because we are very client focused to make sure that the client's needs are met.
Yeah, I think it brings up one of the other sides of this program, which is so valuable, which is that we are training interns, we are training master's level clinicians and doctoral level clinicians. And one of the things that you learn as a counselor is that you're not going to be everyone's taste. Right. I say that to my students all the time. I'm like, I'm not everyone's taste.
Exactly.
I'm like, might not be your taste as a teacher. I might not be your taste as a counselor. And getting to the point where we're trained to say that's okay, right? It's okay if I'm not the right person for you. Right. You can go see someone else, and we will, at the CCSC, we will help you and put you in touch with and connect you to a new person. I think one of the other things, we've kind of transitioned a little bit into talking to some of the obstacles that people have to getting counseling. I think first and foremost, it can feel really vulnerable. And so that can lead to bringing up a lot of different things for people. But maybe you could talk a little bit about the obstacles that you see people have from your perspective in getting counseling in the first place, and then maybe even some obstacles concerning the CCSC specifically.
I think as far as getting counseling in the first place is just not knowing where to start. Or, not even identifying like, hey, this is something that I should talk through. Or I've seen many just instances of people, as far as like stigmatized views of counseling and mental health, whether that be from family, community, of saying, hey, you've got it, you're strong. We see in many, cultures and different populations is pray about it. There's so many things that keep people from actually reaching out for professional services. And I feel like that's a barrier sometimes. So in terms of like knowing what your resources are, knowing how to get in contact, knowing how to even just take that step and contacting somebody and saying, hey, I need help. Just identifying in the very first place, like, oh, like, sure I have community, sure I have friends, sure I have family to talk to, but I could benefit from talking to somebody else. I think it's more so the education of the effectiveness of counseling.
Yeah, I really appreciated you bringing up kind of family expectations or community expectations, and every community, whether whatever community it is that you are a part of and you feel connected to, they have sometimes value judgments about what counseling can be, and we would never want to diminish those value systems, but there is also the benefit to coming in and having someone to talk to.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, hearing people around you say, you don't need that, or is it really bad enough? That's a phrase I hear. Is it really bad enough that you need counseling?
Is it really bad enough? Nothing's wrong with me. I'm not crazy. There's just so much like language around it, and there's just so much stigma. So I think in, you know, working to be more visible, working to just say, hey, like, it's okay. And there are so many resources out there to help. I think that's where the stigma is starting to like decrease. Of course, it's still there and it's, you know, going strong, but as little with one
going strong.
one day at a time is as much as we can do to, you know, promote our services, to promote accessibility, to promote visibility. So I think something that we're working on is just saying, hey, like, we're a resource in this community, use us.
Yeah. We have this this amazing opportunity to come in, and you know, I have known people that have come in and made use of our services for things as simple as, you know what, I'm trying to make a decision about what my next job is, or trying to make decisions about a relationship and whether I'm in the right one, or even we do couples counseling. So coming in to have just some sessions with a couple. And actually, we've had some people come in and do couples friends counseling in the past, where just like they and their friend come in and talk to a counselor together and take advantage of the very, very, very low cost that we offer. So I guess I'm left wondering a little bit about, like, what do you see as some of the obstacles, maybe specific to the CCSC, or I think I'll leave it there. Specific to the CCSC.
I think specific to the CCSC, again, is just like the knowing of like what the service is, how it goes. Again, working with interns sometimes, that can be scary for people, for somebody to say, oh, this person isn't like licensed, I want a professional, but to, I guess, reassure them, they're working with, you know, licensed professionals, they're working with trained supervisors on site. So we are truly a training clinic to make sure that our students are providing really great services, and, you know, eventually they will hopefully go out into the community, get licensed, and, you know, be able to provide these services. But in-house, we're able to support our students to provide services really low cost, and just really working to show them what best practices are for clients.
Yeah, that's an important point. Our counselors are just excellent, I think, and we have such good staff and faculty and who are all supporting them and teaching them, and they do some amazing work. And so I think it can feel like an obstacle.
Yeah.
Would you say, do you think that maybe also finding us, or like getting connected can be an obstacle? And if so, maybe tell us a little bit about how people can get connected more easily.
Yeah, I think, again, we're trying to kind of strengthen our visibility and getting established as far as a resource. So we have a website that we're working on relaunching to make things more accessible. So on the website, I want to say launching July 1st, there will be a really easy form to put your name in, your phone number, maybe a little like narrative box, and just hit submit, and then you'll get contacted by the intake coordinator. But until then, we have a way to contact them, have an initial screening, determine if you're a good candidate for our services, because, you know, again, working with interns, we are working with things like anxiety, depression, like you said, couples, career, stress, things like that. But you know, that screening is important. So being able to have that screening, call in, email, get contacted, and get scheduled pretty quickly, I would say. So one, getting connected, coming, or, you know, whether that be on site, telehealth. So we're trying to make things very convenient. So as far as barriers, I think it's just knowing about the service, finding who we are, and getting connected, but also the fear sometimes. The fear of getting started. Readiness is a huge thing as well. So sometimes people will decide, okay, let me reach out, let me have this initial screening, and after a phone call, you're like, okay, you know what? That's great. I know that it's there, but I'm not ready for that. But it's more so, again, taking that first step and just knowing that we're a resource.
Yeah. And you mentioned something about the online. Can you talk a little bit about the different types of therapy that we offer in terms of in-person, online, and the difference?
We do in-person, which is on-site in our clinic, and all sessions are recorded. So when you're on-site, we have a system called Vault, where we're recording the sessions, and that's strictly for the growth of our interns. For them to watch their tapes back, to see what they're doing right, see areas to improve, and also for supervisors to support and provide feedback. But that's also the same as like telehealth as well. It just depends on what is most convenient for you. Telehealth is only offered to DC residents, but for the most part, I think we do a good job at accommodating services depending on like the convenience of what people need.
I think that's an important point too, the being DC residents, that the George Washington University also has a clinic in Alexandria, Virginia, where if you are a resident of Virginia, you could see a therapist there, but because of licensure rules, you have to be a resident of DC,
Right.
Too, but not to come in person.
Right.
And I think too that the flexibility of having online versus in person is really great, because you can come in person, you can meet your counselor, you can start the process, but then if you need to be out of town or if you just can't make it to your session and you need to do it online, there's a lot of flexibility that people
And
can
sometimes
do.
people prefer telehealth, especially starting out. Sometimes they're just like, you know, I'm doing this big thing, this is scary, I'm being brave, but also let me just hang out in my house and get comfortable and have this space where I'm able to receive this really great service, but in the comfort of my own home. And that may transition to being on site at some point, but I think offering both services is convenient for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you've mentioned an intake coordinator before. Maybe you could talk a little bit about who the intake coordinator is when they call in, and should they call, should they email? What's that look like?
I would say easiest is to shoot an email. So the email is ccscfoggybottom@gwu.edu. And that email will go straight to our intake coordinator, who is off-site, but she does a really great job, Dr. Biaz, at responding, at scheduling, doing the screening, and getting you scheduled. She looks at your background, she looks at presenting problems, she looks at maybe preference, and we can't always guarantee preference for an intern, but we welcome feedback, and we listen, and we try our best to accommodate that.
Yeah, I love that. You can say, I would prefer a counselor of this ethnicity or this specialty. So, and we try to accommodate that. So, well, this has been really wonderful. Thank you so much for taking your time today and just sharing with us about the clinic. And hopefully we have helped some people understand what counseling can be, the value of it.
Yes.
And maybe they'll start overcoming some of those obstacles to reach out and make use of a service that, I mean, you can get therapy for like $5.
Yes.
So it's pretty great.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much.
Of course.
That's all the time we have for today's program. But we'd also like to thank Mayor Muriel Bowser and the OCTFME Director, LaToya Foster, for their support of the Care for Creatives program. For more information, please go to creativeaffairsdc.com. And we'll see you next time.